Hello everyone, this is Asra Sultana, Assistant Professor in Triple Department, working in ISL Engineering College. So today we are going to discuss about the topic numerical solution of swing equation and various factors affecting transient stability. So let us start our class. So numerical solution of swing equation in most practical systems. After machine lumping has done, there will be still more than two machines to be considered from point of view of system stability. So we have no choice but to solve the swing equation of each machine by numerical technique on the digital computer. Okay, so we are going to solve the swing equation in a step-by-step manner. So when in a practical system, when we are having more than one machine, so we have to consider the numerical technique of swing equation in a step-by-step manner. So even in the case of a single machine tied to infinite bus bar, critical clearing time cannot be obtained from equal area criterion and we have to make this calculation numerically through segregation. So there are various sophisticated methods available for the solution of swing equation. So one of the method is Runge-Kutta method. In mathematics, we have studied that Runge-Kutta method. Now we are treating the point by point method of solution, which is a conventional approximate method like all numerical methods, but a well tried and proven one. So now we are illustrating the point by point method for one machine tied to infinite bus bar. So the procedure is, however, general and can be applied to every machine of a multi-machine system. Now let us consider the swing equation which we have already derived in the previous classes. That is d square delta by dt square is equal to 1 by m pm minus pmax sine delta, that is equal to pa by m, where m is equal to gh by pi, or in per unit system it can be written as h by pi f. Solution delta t can be obtained at discrete intervals of time with interval spread of delta t uniform throughout. So accelerating power and change in speed, which are continuous functions of time, are discreted below. That is, accelerating power PA computed at the beginning of an interval is assumed to remain constant. So we are assuming that the accelerating power PA will be constant in the starting, constant from the middle of the preceding interval to the middle of the interval being considered, as shown in this figure. Okay. So PA is assumed to be constant from the middle of the preceding interval to the middle of the interval being considered. Angular rotor velocity omega is d delta by dt, that is over and above synchronous velocity omega s, is assumed constant. That is angular velocity, rotor velocity is assumed constant throughout any interval at the value computed for the middle of the interval. So these are the figures showing the point by point solution of swing equation 12.38 A, B and C. Okay. So in this we can see that it is showing discrete and continuous solution of swing equation. So first diagram is showing power versus time. Okay. PA versus T by delta T. We are having the steps here n, n minus 1, n minus 2, and these are the powers pa n minus 1, pa n minus 2. Then second is showing t by delta t versus omega. Here it is n, n minus 1 by 2, n minus 1, n minus 3 by 2, n minus 2, and our frequency is omega n minus 3 by 2, omega n 1 by 2. And here we can see on x-axis dt by delta t and y-axis is delta n, n minus 1, n minus 2, and this is delta n minus 1, delta n minus 2, delta n. Okay. So in the figure, the numbering on t by delta t axis pertains to the end of intervals. At the end of the n minus 1th interval, acceleration power is given as Pa n minus 1 is equal to Pm minus Pmax sine delta n minus 1, where delta n minus 1 we have already calculated. So change in velocity omega is equal to d delta by dt caused by Pa n minus 1, assumed constant over delta t, that is from n minus 3 by 2 to n minus 1 by 2. We are assuming that delta t is constant. Now omega n minus 1 by 2 minus omega n minus 3 by 2 can be written as delta t by m p a n minus 1, this equation. Okay. So change in delta during the n minus 1th interval can be given as delta n minus 1 is equal to delta delta n minus 1 is equal to delta n minus 1 minus delta n minus 2, that is equal to delta t omega n minus 3 by 2. And during the nth interval, this can be written as delta n is equal to delta n minus delta n minus 1, that is equal to delta t omega n minus 1 by 2. So subtracting equation, this A equation from B, and using this equation omega n minus 1 by 2 minus omega n minus 3 by 2 is equal to delta t by m p a n minus 1, we are going to get the value of delta n as delta n as delta n minus 1 plus delta t square by m into p a n minus 1. So using this equation, we can write another equation for delta n, that is delta n is equal to delta n minus 1 plus delta n. So the process of computation is now repeated to obtain PAN and delta n plus delta n plus 1 and delta n plus 1. So time solution in discrete form is thus carried out over the desired length of time, which is usually 0.5 seconds, and continuous form of solution is obtained by drawing a smooth curve through discrete values as shown in this figure. Okay. Greater accuracy of solution can be achieved by reducing the time duration of intervals. The occurrence or removal of a fault or initiation of any switching event causes a discontinuity in accelerating power PA. If such a discontinuity occurs at the beginning of an interval, then the average of the values of PA before and after the discontinuity can be used. So in computing the increment of angle occurring during the first interval after a fault applied at t equal to 0, now equation uh, this one delta n is equal to delta n minus 1 plus delta t square by m p a n minus 1 is becoming now delta 1 is equal to delta t square by m plus pa 0 plus by 2. Okay, this is we are now introducing a new term here called as pa 0 plus. Okay, pa 0 plus by 2, where pa 0 plus is the accelerating power immediately after occurrence of the fault. So immediately before the fault, the system is in steady state. So PA0 is equal to 0. PA0 minus is equal to 0. And delta naught is known value. If the fault is cleared at the beginning of nth interval, in calculation for this interval, we have to use PAN minus 1, the value as half PAN minus 1 minus PAN minus 1 plus. See here, what we are doing, we are putting this value PAN minus 1 as half PAN minus 1 minus plus PAN minus 1 plus, where PAN minus 1 minus is the accelerating power immediately before clearing, and PAN minus 1 plus is that power immediately after clearing the fault. If any discontinuity is occurring at the middle of an interval, so no special procedure is required, and the increment of angle during such an interval is calculated from the value of PA at the beginning of the interval. Now, I hope everyone is clear with this numerical solution of swing equation. So this is a very important question. This can be asked for long questions. Discuss about or write about the numerical solution of swing equation. So this is important topic, students, all of you. If you have any doubts, you can ask me. So next topic is factors affecting transient stability. So two machine system can be equivalently reduced to a single machine connected to infinite bus bar. The qualitative conclusions regarding system stability drawn from a two machine or an equivalent one machine infinite bus system is easily extended to a multi-machine system. So we have studied the algorithm for determining the stability of a multi-machine system already. Okay. So what we are doing here, we are seeing that two machine system is equivalently reduced to a single machine system connected to infinite bus bars, and whatever the conclusions we have got regarding the stability drawn from a two machine or a one machine infinite bus system can be extended to a multi-machine system. Okay, a multi-machine system will have more than two machines. Okay, so transient stability is greatly affected by the type and location of a fault. So that the power system analyst must be very outset at the very outset of a stability study decide on these two factors. So what are the two factors which is affecting the transient stability? First one is the type of fault and second one is the location of a fault. So a power system analyst will be looking into these two types of uh, types, or that is the type and location of a fault. So we have selected in our examples a three-phase fault which is generally more severe from point of view of power transfer. Given the type of fault and its location, let us now consider other factors which will affect the transient stability. And from there, we can draw the conclusions regarding methods of improving the transient stability limit of a system and making it as close as to the steady state limit as possible. So already we have seen what is transient stability, transient state stability limit, the steady state limit. So what we are doing here. So now, whatever type of fault maybe and whatever the location is, uh, so we are considering other factors which will affect the transient stability, and then we are drawing some conclusions regarding how to improve the transient stability limit of a system, and it should be as close as to steady state limit as possible. For the case of one machine connected to infinite bus, it can be easily seen from this equation, that is delta delta n is equal to delta delta n minus 1 plus delta t square by m p a n minus 1, that an increase in the inertia constant m of the machine reduces the angle through which it swings in a given time interval, offering thereby a method of improving stability, but this cannot be employed in practice because of economic reasons and for the reason of slowing down the response of the speed governor loop apart from an excessive rotor weight. Okay, so whenever there is an increase in inertia constant m, the angle through which it swings in a given time interval, uh, thereby a method of improving stability, but this cannot be employed in practice. So whenever we are increasing inertia constant m, angle will be reducing and improving the stability, but it cannot be employed in practice because of some reasons, like first one is economic reason, and second one is the reason of slowing down the response of speed governor loop, and also it has a very excessive rotor weight. So with reference to this figure, there is a fault on a middle of middle of one line of the system, where we can see there is during fault, pre-fault, and post-fault. What are the what is the power angle curve? So we can see from this figure that for a given clearing angle, the accelerating area decreases, but the decelerating area increases as the maximum power limit of the various power angle curves is raised, thereby adding to the transient stability limit of the system. So for a given clearing angle, accelerating area will be decreasing, but decelerating area will be increasing. So as the maximum power limit of the various power angles is raised, thereby adding to the transient stability limit of the system. The maximum steady power of a system can be increased by raising the voltage profile of the system and by reducing the transfer reactance. So we are telling here that how to increase the steady power of a system. So steady power of a system can be increased by raising the voltage profile of the system and reducing the transfer reactance. So these conclusions along with the various transient stability which I have already studied suggest the following method of improving the transient stability limit of a power system. So what are the various methods of improving transient stability of a power system? These are the methods. Okay, what are these? Increase of system voltages, use of AVR, automatic voltage regulator, Second one is use of high-speed excitation systems. Third one is reduction in system transfer reactance. Fourth one is use of high-speed reclosing breakers. So modern tendency is to employ single pole operation of reclosing circuit breakers. When a fault takes place on a system, voltages at all buses are reduced. At generator terminals, these are sensed by the automatic voltage regulators, which help restore generator terminal voltages by acting within the excitation system. Modern exciter systems having solid state controls quickly respond to bus voltage reduction and can achieve from one half to one and a half cycles. That is half to one and a half cycles gain in critical clearing times for three-phase faults on the HT bus of the generator transformer. So reducing transfer reactance is another important practical method of increasing stability limit. So this will also raise system voltage profile, and the reactance of the transmission line can be decreased by two methods. First one is by reducing the conductor spacing, and second one is by increasing the conductor diameter. Usually, however, the conductor spacing is controlled by other features such as lighting protection and minimum clearance to prevent the arc from one phase moving to another phase. The conductor diameter can be increased by using material of low conductivity or by hollow cores. However, normally the conductor configuration is fixed by economic considerations quite apart from stability. The use of bundled conductors is of course an effective means of reducing series reactance. Okay, so what are these bundled conductors? Already we have seen, students must have seen in power system too. Okay, so it is a very important concept in power systems, the use of bundled conductors. And it is a very important question whenever you face an interview, you may be asked what is the significance of bundled conductors or what is the application or use of bundled conductors. Okay. So conductor diameter is increased by using material of low conductivity or by hollow cores. However, normally conductor configuration is fixed by economic considerations quite apart from stability. Use of bundle conductors is an effective means of reducing series reactance. Compensation for line reactance by series capacitors is an effective and economical method of increasing stability limit, especially for transmission distances of more than 350 kilometers. So for transmission for more than having more than distance more than 350 kilometers, so what we are using is series capacitors we are using. So degree of series compensation, however, accentuates the problems of protective relaying and normal voltage profiles and lower voltages during line to ground faults. Series compensation becomes more effective and economical if part of it is switched on as to increase the degree of compensation upon the occurrence of a disturbance which is likely to cause instability. Switched series capacitors simultaneously will decrease fluctuation of load voltages and raise the transient stability limit to a value almost equal to the steady state limit. Switching shunt capacitors on or switching shunt reactors off also raises stability limits, but the LDA rating of shunt capacitors which is required is 3 to 6 times the rating of switched series capacitors for the same increase in stability limit. So, therefore, series capacitors are preferred unless shunt elements are required for other purposes. That is, for example, control of voltage profile. So, increasing the number of parallel lines between transmission points is quite often used to reduce transfer reactance. It adds at the same time to reliability of the transmission system. Additional line circuits are not likely to improve, are not likely to prove economical unit after all feasible improvements have been carried out in the first two circuits. As the majority of faults are transient in nature, rapid switching and isolation of unhealthy lines followed by reclosing has been shown earlier to be a great help in improving the stability margins. So, modern circuit breaker technology has now made it possible for line clearing to be done as fast as in 2 cycles. So, what we are doing here, we are clearing the fault in as fast as 2 cycles. Clearing the fault with the help of modern circuit breaker technology. Further, a great majority of transient faults are line to ground in nature. It is natural that methods have been developed for selective single pole opening and reclosing, which further aid the stability limits. So with reference to this figure where a generator is connected to infinite bus bar, If a transient line to ground fault is assumed to occur on the generator bus, so it can be seen that immediately that during the fault there will be a definite amount of power transfer as different from zero power transfer for the case of a three-phase fault. Also, when the circuit breaker pole corresponding to the line fault which is faulted is opened, the other two lines which are healthy ones will remain intact, so that considerable power transfer will continue to take place via these lines in comparison to the case of three pole switching, when the power transfer on fault clearing will be reduced to zero. So it is therefore easy to see why the single pole switching and reclosing aids in stability problem, and it is widely adopted. Even when the stability margins are sufficient, single pole switching is adopted to prevent large swings and consequent voltage dips. Single pole switching and reclosing is of course expensive in terms of delaying and introduces the associated problems of overvoltages caused by single pole opening owing to line capacitances. So there are various methods available to nullify these capacitive coupling effects. So these were the factors affecting the transient stability. Now let us see the recent trends in power system stability. Recent trends in power system stability and design of large alternators tend towards lower short circuit ratio, that is SCR is equal to 1 by XD, which will be achieved by reducing machine air gap with consequent savings in machine MMF, size, weight and cost. Okay, so how we can achieve the lower short circuit ratio with consequent savings in machine MMF size, weight and cost. So reduction in size of rotor reduces inertia constant, lowering thereby stability margin. And the loss in stability margin is made up by such features as lower reactance lines, faster circuit breakers and faster excitation systems. So these are the five trends in power system stability. First one is HVDC links, braking resistors, short circuit current limiters, turbine fast valving or bypass valving, full load rejection technique. Now let us see the first one, HVDC links. So increased use of HVDC links employing thyristors would alleviate stability problems. A DC link is asynchronous, that is two AC system and either end do not have to be controlled in phase or even be at exactly the same frequency as they do for an AC link, and the power transmitter can be gently controlled. There is no risk of a fault in one system causing loss of stability in the other system. Second one, braking resistors. So for improving stability where clearing is delayed or a large load is suddenly lost, resistive load called braking resistor is connected at or near the generator bus. So this load will compensate for at least some of the reduction of load on the generators, and it will reduce the acceleration. So during a fault, the resistors are applied to the terminals of the generators through circuit breakers by means of an elaborate control scheme. So this control scheme will determine the amount of resistance which can be applied and what is its duration. The braking resistors will remain on for a matter of cycles both during fault period and after system voltage is restored. Next is short circuit current limiters. So these are generally used to limit the short circuit duty of distribution lines. These may also be used in long transmission lines to modify the transfer impedance during fault conditions, so that the voltage profile of the system is somewhat improved and raising the system load level during the fault. Next one is turbine fast valving or bypass valving. So which the methods which we have discussed are an attempt at replacing the system load so as to increase the electrical output of the generator during fault conditions. So another recent trends in power system stability method of improving the stability of a unit is to decrease the mechanical input power to the turbine. So how can we do this? This can be done by means of fast valving, where the difference between mechanical input and reduced electrical output of a generator under a fault as sensed by control scheme initiates the closing of a turbine valve to reduce the power input. So during a fast valving operation, the interceptor valves are rapidly shut, that is between zero point 0.1 to zero point 0.2 seconds, and immediately they are reopened. This procedure increases the critical switching time long enough so that in most cases the unit will remain stable for faults with stuck breaker clearing times. The scheme has been put to use in some stations in USA. Next is full load rejection technique. Fast valving combined with high speed clearing time will suffice to maintain stability in most of the cases. However, there are still situations where stability is difficult to maintain. So, in that situations, a normal procedure is to automatically trip the unit off the line. This, however, causes several hours of delay before the unit can be put back into operation. So, loss of a major unit for this length of time can seriously jeopardize the remaining system. So to remedy these situations, full load rejection scheme would be utilized after the unit is separated from the system. So to do this, unit has to be equipped with a large steam bypass system. So after the system is recovered from the shock which is caused by the fault, unit can be resynchronized and reloaded. The main disadvantage of this method is the extra cost of a large bypass system. Thank you everyone for watching the video. I hope everyone understood today's class. Thank you everyone.